The Megalodon, a 60-foot apex predator, was the most fearsome shark to ever roam the ancient oceans. While thought extinct, recent evidence suggests this leviathan may still lurk below. We're diving into the most horrifying alleged Megalodon attack cases that will make you permanently terrified of the deep.
It will probably scare the hell out of some people, but I think of this as just the perfect representation of how close you can get to sharks without having them tear you to pieces. Now that is a little freaky. That's a hammerhead shark, and you can see it sweeps in very close, and it looks like it's gonna take a chunk out of our diver, but then he's okay. Coming in at number 9, we have Julie Wolf. When you think of a canoe trip, you think about peace and calm waters. Every time I get into a canoe, I think I'm in a rom-com and I'm randomly gonna run into Jennifer Aniston, and then we're gonna fall in love next to a campfire. Well, Julie Wolf didn't have that experience at all. Julie was riding her canoe off the coast of California when she got rocked by something strange. It felt as if she had bumped into a rock, but she was way out in the ocean, so there was no way she could have run into land. Turns out it was a great white shark. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a great time to me. Well, it got even worse when the shark bit into her canoe. This tore a hole into it, but Julie still had some time. She started to paddle back to shore and was able to get back to land before the whole thing sunk into the ocean. On the shark's side, he probably thought he was getting a nice snack, and then he just got a mouthful of carbon fiber. That's like when you put some Kraft cheese on your burger but you forget to take the plastic off. Coming in at number 8, we have Dan Shoesmith. A diving instructor was leading a shark dive and everything seemed to be going as planned. He took his group down to the bottom of the ocean, they kneeled in the sand, and the shark started to swim around them. The time underwater was finishing up and they started to ascend to the surface. Now normally the sharks would swim away at this point, but they started to follow the group to the surface. Not only that, but it seemed that they were getting closer. Dan got his group of divers to huddle together and stick their fins out to create some distance in case the sharks got close. He then filled a safety buoy full of air and sent it to the surface so the boats would know that he was approaching the surface. When he did this, one of the sharks chased the buoy to the surface. The group of divers waited about 10 meters below the surface for what would have felt like an eternity, but eventually the sharks left and they were able to safely exit the water. Coming in at number 7, we have the Jaws encounter. I had to put a movie one on this list, especially this movie. Think about what your chances of running into a shark are, how much time you spend around water. I know some people who are even afraid of swimming in pools because they think something is going to try and eat them, and this is largely part of this movie. Jaws gave generation after generation an irrational fear of sharks. And yes, it's an irrational fear because you'll see someone who's afraid of sharks wolf down a bunch of high fructose corn syrup like diabetes isn't licking its lips. Steven Spielberg has even said if he could go back in time, he wouldn't make Jaws because it demonized sharks in such a way. But the opening scene of this movie where a girl is getting munched down to that famous Donna, Donna, Donna is still one of the most iconic movie moments ever. It just sucks that so many people became afraid of something that they will probably never see in real life. Coming in at number 6, we have the Australian kayakers. A couple of mates off the coast of Australia were going for a nice kayak ride when they got an unexpected visitor. These guys didn't get a bump like Julie Wolf, but almost like it was pulled right out of a movie. They saw a fin behind them trailing them, waiting to see if one of them was foolish enough to tip over their kayak. The two men were a little frightened, but they just decided they would wait it out. One of the men later described the encounter as a dog coming to check out what was going on. They didn't have a lot of options to scare off their curious friend, so they went with slapping the water with their paddles. Turns out that worked perfectly. Coming in at number 5, we have Cops vs. Sharks. No, this isn't the title of the new motion picture that's going to be coming out this fall. It's actually an incident that happened in Australia. It should be no surprise that Australia has back-to-back slots on a list about shark encounters. Well, a couple of police were responding to something that had them out on a little dinghy. I don't know what kind of water crime that could be, but they were out on a very small boat and a 16-foot great white shark swam by the boat. I don't think there's anything in the police training manual about that. Coming in at number 4, we have when Sam Jackson got eaten by a shark. Okay, just one more movie one on the list. This one is my favorite Sam Jackson movie moment ever. Sam Jackson is trying to rally the troops in the movie Deep Blue Sea. It's a moment of motivation. It seems like everything is about to turn around. But here's the thing about Deep Blue Sea. It's more of a horror movie than an action movie. And when things seem like they're starting to get good in a horror movie, you know they're about to get so much worse. That clip is so funny. A bunch of them got wetsuits on and everyone is glistening with sweat for some reason. I love every second of it. Cheesy deaths in movies are some of my favorite things. Alright, let's move back to real people getting eaten by sharks. Coming in at number 3, we have bathroom break. You know, if you're tucked away in a cage, the shark will find some way to get to you. A group of divers were down in a cage taking some photos of a massive shark swimming by when this underwater king hit them with one of these. I don't think you can smell it because you're underwater, but that poop is going to cover every inch of you. You're gonna have poop under your fingernails, poop in your eyebrows. You are gonna become one with the poop. Coming in at number 2, we have scarier than it looks. There wasn't a lot the people watching could do in our next clip. They're just standing around watching in horror. Yeah, it looks like that shark is gonna flip over that little kayak and eat that dude like he's downing a Glizzy Gladiator hot dog. But here's the thing, that's a basking shark. They only eat plankton. They don't even have teeth. So even though that looks like it would be terrifying to be in the water with, it's really just a big vegan swimming out there. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have the cage won't protect you. The thing about shark diving is you want to ensure you're going to see a shark, so sometimes you bring bait. And the bait can get the sharks a little bit excited. A lot of people will go into a cage to try and avoid contact with the shark. But here's the thing about sharks. They are basically a spine, a jaw, and then all muscle and cartilage. So sometimes they can squeeze into very small spaces and you can have something like this happen.
He's in the cage. Oh my god.
Here's something interesting about that clip. There was a diver in the cage with the shark. The shark is thrashing all over the place. You have blood in the water. Eventually the shark works its way out of the cage, and then the diver returns to the surface and signals that he is okay, and walks away without a scratch, and the most amazing story to tell at a party.
Kicking things off, in at number 10 we have the mega mouth shark. Don't be fooled by its name, these sharks are a lot less sinister than they sound.
It seems unimaginable. An alien of the deep sneaking into the shallow waters by night. Who knows what other deep-sea monsters could be out there right now? The krill are calling, and the megamouth navigates straight for the action.
Measuring in at an average of 25 feet, this shark was only first discovered back in 1976 near Oahu, Hawaii, and since its discovery there have only been 100 other sightings of this scary looking creature. They are filter feeders, which means they slowly swim through the water with their mouths open to feed on plankton. They also like to alternate between deep and shallow water and search for food, but because they have only been 100 sightings of this megamouth shark, there is still a lot of information about their lifestyle and feeding habits that still need to be discovered. But honestly, who named this shark? They must be the least creative person on the planet. They literally saw that it had an unusually large mouth and decided that it would be called what should we call this thing? The megamouth? The big mouth? No, we're going with megamouth shark. Well, thank you for that one, Captain Obvious. Well, number 9 we have the tiger shark, who measures in at 25 feet, weighing in at about 1,300 pounds. The tiger shark are known to have one of the most bizarre diets. They will eat anything from albatrosses, venomous snakes, and other sharks to garbage such as paint cans, rubber tires, and even license plates. They definitely aren't picky eaters. I know I'm pretty picky. I don't like a lot of foods. And yeah, take a look at their scary teeth. Aside from being a razor sharp and slanted, they serve a dual purpose. First, these sharp teeth help the shark to grab onto their struggling victims, and then they allow the tiger shark to rip through their skin and hides with ease. So they can literally go after just about any prey that crosses their path. And take a look at this gigantic tiger shark that was caught by 2 fishermen over near the Australian coast. This particular shark measured in at 6 meters, and the fishermen said that originally they had a hammerhead on their line, but then this tiger shark came out of nowhere and swallowed the hammerhead shark. I bet he instantly regretted that decision because now he's dead. But how the heck did they pull this gigantic shark into their boat? And why would they want to invite that thing on on board. You know what? There are so many things in the water that are just so scary, it makes me not want to swim in the open oceans. Next up, number 8, we have the Prehistoric. This ferocious looking shark measures in at 25 feet long and weighs a whopping 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. The Prehistoric shared the oceans with marine dinosaurs, and that dates back 75 to 100 million years ago, but they were still known to be the ultimate predator found in the water. The Plesiosaurus, Tylosaurus, and the largest turtle were all easy prey for the shark, even though they were all bigger than him. This shark is also known for its 490 razor-sharp teeth, and each one of his teeth were capable of growing up to 7 centimeters long. Is this real life right now? It is also common fact that the Prehistoric shark established sharks as the dominant oceanic predator. My only question is, why hasn't Hollywood made a movie on this shark yet? I mean, they've made all these shark movies already, and I'm pretty sure a shark movie just came out. So you know what? I think it's time to call Steven Spielberg, you there? Great white sharks makes its way onto this list at number 7. Great white sharks have a really notorious reputation with humans, and this is the shark that we probably fear the most. Thanks to movies like Jaws, Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws 4, Jaws 5, I don't know how far they go. But still, that doesn't stop people from having an irrational fear of these scary looking sharks. Great whites can grow to be around 26.2 feet long, and they can swim at speeds of up to 60 kilometers an hour. Currently, they are the largest predatory fish that exist on our planet. So I get why so many people are so scared of them. Great white sharks are also equipped with a set of 300 razor sharp triangular teeth that are arranged in 7 rows. Let's take a closer look, shall we?
Its weapon of choice? Up to 300 serrated steak knives, which grow right from its gums. Each jaw carries several rows of deadly blades that are replaced all throughout its life.
Okay, now I'm officially terrified, but wait, there's more. Let me introduce to you guys to Deep Blue. He is the largest great white shark that currently exists today. He weighs in at 2.5 tons and measures around 20 feet long, but take a look at these pictures right here. This is absolutely terrifying, and I have no idea what these divers are thinking. I would be peeing in the ocean if I ever saw these things swim near me, and I'm hoping that it startles them. It scares them away. I don't know what I'm hoping for, but I don't think I'm ever going to be in that situation. Swimming at number 6, we're talking about the autodust shark. Things are about to get serious on this list because this shark measures in, and I kid you not, at 30 feet. How is this even possible? Well, for comparison, that's the size of an NFL goalpost. The autodust shark dominated the oceans during the Paleocene and also the Eocene period, which was roughly about 45 to 60 million years ago. So don't worry, these sharks won't be snacking on your legs when you swim. They are also known to be direct ancestors to the massive Megalodon, who appears later on in this list. And is the Megalodon still around? They had similar feeding habits, and their teeth grew to about 3 to 4 inches, and they mainly feasted on whales. Let's just say that I'm extremely happy that these sharks are no longer alive today. Fighting into the list at number 5, we have the Tetratus shark, who measures in at 30 feet long. Also known as the crusher shark, because why not? This beast of a thing roamed the oceans 85 to 100 million years ago, and they enjoyed feeding on shellfish because they can easily crush their shells with their powerful jaws. If you were to look inside of their mouth, you would see that they have 550 massive flattened teeth, and paleontologists believe that their teeth can grow up to 55 centimeters long and 45 centimeters wide. That sounds absolutely terrifying if you ask me. Any creature that is capable of ripping me apart limb from limb is an enemy of mine in my books. I'm really starting to develop an irrational fear of sharks. Is anyone else feeling the same way? Or is it just me? Okay, I think it's just me. No, I think a lot of you guys are afraid of sharks. Number 4, we have the helicorpian shark. You know the shark with like the teeth like that? Well, you guys look at the picture now, and yeah, are you guys even prepared to have your life ruined right now? Well, thank God this scary looking beast went extinct 250 to 290 million years ago. I don't even know how we know things like that. Well, otherwise we would be in a whole lot of trouble if they were still alive today. The name helicorpian literally means a spiral saw, so it kind kinda makes sense. And paleontologists all agree that these crazy looking teeth were attached to his lower jaw. The helicorpian was estimated to grow up to 30 feet long, so it seems like our last few sharks are all 30 feet. Why can't anyone grow just a little bit longer than that? Well, one of the most interesting facts about the shark is that they were able to survive the Permian-Triassic extinction event, which killed 90% of all marine animals and 70% of all land animals. But as fate would have it, the helicorpian's luck ran out when it went extinct several million years later. But who knows, maybe the species is still hiding in the deep sea waiting to resurface again. The 40-foot basking shark makes its way onto this list at number 3. Did that video make you guys want to yawn as well? Well, despite their large mouths and extremely threatening appearance, basking sharks are actually not aggressive at all. And they're completely harmless to divers and snorkelers. I mean, I was literally about to burn all my swim trunks. Well, as it turns out, they use their large mouths to capture plankton, and they also use their hook-like teeth to help them catch more plankton. So you're telling me that these sharks just swim around all day with their mouths open, and that's all they have to do? Sounds super lazy if you ask me, but I also have the feeling that, you know what, they're kind of winning at life, aren't they? But I'm pretty sure if I saw this thing while snorkeling, I would instantly have a heart attack. I mean, just look at that thing. Number 2, we're talking about the whale shark. I mean, what the heck is this? Whale meets shark and they infuse to create this master... Okay, I don't know. Well, currently whale sharks are the largest fish on the planet, measuring at 46, this is crazy, 46 feet and weighing up to 12 tons. Whale sharks are known to be filter feeders, which means that they enjoy eating plankton through their gills, but they also like to eat squid, krill, and other small fish. Even though they're not threatening to humans, they still look pretty terrifying. They have about 3,000 tiny teeth, but thankfully they don't use these teeth to eat. If you're brave enough, you can actually pay to swim alongside whale sharks, but like anything in nature, nothing is predictable, and there's no guarantees that you won't be hurt while swimming with these giant beasts. And finally, coming in at number 1 on our list, we have the Megalodon. It's no surprise. It was an obvious number 1 for this one. This 50-foot monster was the largest predatory fish of all time. Everything about this shark has kept our fear of the ocean alive, despite the fact that the Megalodon has been dead, well, dead, is it dead? For over 2.6 million years. They probably weighed over 48 tons, and their teeth ranged from about 3 to 7 inches in length. Their jaws measured in at 7 feet tall by 6 feet wide, and they had a bite force of about 40,000 pounds per square inch. If that's not terrifying enough, Megalodon sharks ate whales for breakfast because they had to consume about 1 ton of food per day in order to sustain itself. Oh, and yeah, I forgot to mention that this thing also had about 276 teeth. So I guess we can take comfort in the fact that they're no longer alive, but since only 5% of our world's oceans have been explored, I mean, who knows? Who knows what kind of scary creatures are actually lurking in the ocean? Also, who knows, maybe these creatures will develop a craving for humans.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the demon. There are many stories and alleged sightings of what is now referred to as the Black Demon of Cortez, which is said to be a massive black shark seen off of Mexico's Baja coast. One story in particular regarding this elusive shark comes from a fisherman named Eric Mack. He had reported that one day while sailing, he felt his boat begin to rock, which immediately gave him the feeling something was awry. Eric was even further startled when he explained that he saw a massive, towering tail sticking at least 5 feet out of the water. The stories of this shark are so infamous that it was even the focus of an episode of a History Channel show called Monster Quest. Maybe if there's a part 2 of this video, we'll talk about some more of the sightings around the demon. In our number 9 spot today, we have the prehistoric monster. Back in 1959, a fisherman named Tex Geddes and his friend James Gavin were boating somewhere just off of the coast of Scotland. It is said that during their time out to sea, they encountered a sea monster that neither of them had ever seen before. They described its head as being sort of turtle-shaped, and that it was a quote hellish monster of prehistoric times, and said that it was breathing heavily through a quote large red gash of a mouth. Okay, not exactly a kind description, but definitely a bit of a terrifying one. I think it's important to bring up that we actually don't really know what megalodons look like. We have a sort of idea, but at the end of the day, we only have some fossils, jaws, spines, teeth. It doesn't really leave us that much to work with. While it isn't quite clear what these two men saw for sure, and it's likely that we'll never know, whatever it was definitely wasn't just the average sea creature. In our number 8 spot today, we have the TikTok shark. In May of last year, someone on TikTok called Alex Albrecht, who is a marine biodiversity student as well as a musician, shared a video on the app that had people seriously shocked. The TikTok shows a massive shark lurking around the ship that Alex was on, which is said to have been just off of the coast of Massachusetts at the time. The ship was full of research students when this massive shark made its appearance, many of which either screamed or had some sort of expletive in response. Another TikTok user asked in the comments if the shark in the video is a megalodon, considering how absolutely huge the thing was. Was this an actual megalodon? Likely not, but hey, I'm not the marine biodiversity student here, so who am I to say? In our number 7 spot today, we have snorkeling. Robert Pamperin and a friend, Gerald Lair, were snorkeling off of La Jolla Cove in California in 1959 when Robert was attacked by a shark. It is said to have all happened quite quickly, and Gerald was alerted to the distress when he heard Robert scream. Gerald turned and saw Robert unusually high in the water, and his mask was missing. At this point, Gerald dove under, and this is when he realized exactly what was going on. There was a shark that had Robert in its mouth up to his waist. Unfortunately, there really wasn't much that Gerald could do to stand up to this absolutely massive shark that he described as larger than your average great white. Robert sadly did not survive the event, and by the time rescuers arrived, they were only able to locate one of his fins. In our number 6 spot today, we have the photographer. This is an encounter that occurred just last year in November, basically a year ago. Underwater photographer Darren Verbeck was diving off of the coast of Hawaii's Big Island when he saw what he thought was a school of fish. He began to get closer, I mean the whole photographer thing, and as he got closer he started to think that what he was actually seeing was a tiger shark. He got even closer, and that's when he said, quote, "I kept looking at the head. I'm like, that is not a tiger shark." And it got closer and closer, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. Darren continued to get closer to the shark and estimated it to be over 15 feet, which is definitely quite large. He explained that the shark was not acting in a threatening way, so he continued to take his photos and shot as much as he could before the massive shark decided to swim away. Experts explained that the shark was likely in the area because of humpback whales, and honestly, I don't want to see the shark that could take down one of those beasts. In our number 5 spot today, we have deep blue. This shark is in fact not a megalodon, I'll just be honest about that, but it definitely is a more modern contender. Deep blue is the name of a great white shark who is most definitely one of the largest ever recorded, at least in our lifetime. This colossal monster is the largest great white shark ever caught on camera by scientists. She is measured to be 20 feet long, 8 feet high, and about 2.5 tons. And while this isn't all that huge compared to her massive prehistoric cousin, it certainly is no small feat. Rumors of her existence have been spread since as far back as the 1990s, but it wasn't until 2014 that she was officially caught on camera and documented. Researchers at the time were in the midst of studying tiger sharks, but she made her grand appearance after scavenging some food from a sperm whale carcass nearby. In our number 4 spot today, we have the USS Indianapolis. This is a story that has been considered the worst shark attack in history, which is definitely a horrific thing to think about. In 1945, the USS Indianapolis was an unescorted US warship that was sailing in the Pacific when it was struck by a Japanese torpedo. This had no problem tearing the ship in two, which then meant that 900 sailors were now floating in the ocean waiting for rescue. Over the next 5 days, nearly 600 men lost their lives due to shark attacks. That's either a group of sharks or a few very large, very hungry ones. From the survivors' accounts of what happened over the course of those days, it seemed like an absolutely nightmare situation. This is exactly why it has gone on to be called one of the worst shark attacks in history. In our number 3 spot today, we have Rodney Fox. Rodney Fox is a man who is thought of as one of the best spear fishermen in the world. In 1963, he was partaking in the Australian Spearfishing Championships, which were being held just south of Adelaide, when he went through what is widely regarded as, again, one of the worst shark attacks in history. The shark he encountered bit him around the waist, which ended up puncturing his diaphragm, ripping his lungs, and crushing his rib cage. Not only this, but the attack left his organs exposed, so much so that when he finally made it back to shore, those rescuing him had to keep his wetsuit on to ensure that his insides actually stayed on the inside. Despite the fact that Rodney needed at least 4 hours of surgery and about 400 stitches, like many people who have had these sort of terrifying encounters, rather than shying away from sharks in the water, he leaned in. He actually became an advocate for sharks after this. He created the first underwater shark observatory and helped to dispel the rumors that sharks are bad, crazy, scary animals that we should all fear. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Jersey Shore. Back in 1916, during the summer season, there were 5 different shark attacks that occurred over the span of 10 days that ended up in the deaths of 4 people. This wasn't something that had been seen before in the area, which of course left people speculating as to why this was happening. There was a heat wave in the area during the time, which likely led to more people being out, enjoying summertime sort of activities, and maybe this attracted the shark, but in the end, no one knows for sure because no one even knows what kind of shark is responsible for the attacks in the first place. Luckily, this didn't go on to become a continuous trend, and whatever shark this was, it went on its merry way or perhaps found another source of food, but this series of attacks definitely kept the public on edge for the weeks and months surrounding. In our number 1 spot today, we have Watson and the shark. For this one, we are headed all the way back to 1749 with a cabin boy named Brooke Watson. Brooke was swimming in the Havana harbor when he had his encounter with a shark. This one grabbed him by his right foot and dragged him underwater. The shark got a second chomp on his foot before a rescue boat was able to come and save him. The sailor on the boat managed to get the shark to back off enough that they could get Brooke out of the water. Brooke lost his lower leg, but his life was saved, which is absolutely the most important part. Brooke's story is not over, however, as he went on to become a member of parliament and eventually Lord Mayor of England. He was so proud of himself for not only surviving a shark attack, but then going on to earn this title that he commissioned famous artist John Singleton Copley to create a painting called Watson and the Shark, which detailed his terrifying encounter and probably went on to scare a ton of people at the time. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the photographer. This is an encounter that occurred just last year in November. Underwater photographer Darren Verbeck was diving off of the coast of Hawaii's Big Island when he saw what he thought was a school of fish. He began to get closer, I mean the whole photographer thing, and as he got closer he started to think that what he was actually seeing was a tiger shark. He continued to get closer, and that's when he said, quote, "I just kept looking at the head. I'm like, that is not a tiger shark." And it got closer and closer, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Darren continued to get closer to the shark and estimated it to be over 15 feet, which is definitely quite large. He explained that the shark was not acting in a threatening way, so he continued to take his photos and shot as much as he could before the massive shark decided to swim away. Experts explained that the shark was likely in the area because of humpback whales, and honestly, I do not want to see the shark that could take down one of those beasts. In our number 9 spot today, we have Todd Endress. Todd Endress is actually a man who was attacked by the same shark 3 different times on August 28th, 2007. Todd was near Marina State Park in California when the attacks occurred. The first one didn't do too much damage, but the second one was certainly much worse. He would later go on to say, spoiler alert, he survived these attacks, he would later go on to say that during this second attack, the shark skinned his back, quote, like a banana peel. Okay, Mario Kart just turned into Nightmare on Elm Street. With the third attack, the shark attempted to eat his leg, which was still attached to his body, and this is when his kind of unlikely savior came in. It was actually a group of dolphins that decided to surround Todd, which provided enough of a distraction that he was able to ride a wave back to shore. It is definitely possible that the shark could have, and it may have, eaten one of those rescue dolphins should it choose to. Once Todd was back on shore, despite having lost half of his blood, his friends were able to help him until rescue arrived, and from there, just 6 weeks later, he was back in the water. Sadly, Todd ended up losing his life in September of 2016 from a car crash, but it's important to note that after his attack, before his untimely death, he made it clear he held no grudge against his shark attacker. He said, quote, "We're in his realm, not the other way around." In our number 8 spot today, we have the J-Bay event finals. This shark attack is from 2015 and is one that happened on live TV, but thankfully it turned out much better than it could have. During the finals of the J-Bay event, which again was being broadcast live around the world, a shark got himself a little in over his head when he decided to try and take a bite out of 3-time world surfing champion Mick Fanning. Mick reacted a lot more bravely than I would have and started to fight back against the shark. While this was going on, another pro surfer, Julian Wilson, paddled towards the shark in order to try and help. In the end, the safety teams came out as quickly as possible to rescue the surfers and a photographer who was also out on the water, and everyone was fine, albeit probably a little shaken up. Fights broke out on the internet over whether this was a shark attack or a shark encounter, and I mean, all that really matters is the humans and the shark are all safe at the end of the day. In our number 7 spot today, we have this strange environment. This is a shark encounter that, I'll be honest, it isn't a Megalodon, but it is one that is so strange it might just show that maybe we don't really have all the answers to ocean mysteries. Scientists were really surprised and confused when they found hammerhead and silky sharks swimming near an underwater volcano in the South Pacific. This is because the waters around there would be extremely hot and they would also be really acidic. This is an extreme environment for marine life, and while some species would thrive in this environment, sharks aren't really on that list, hence the confusion and bafflement of the scientists. While this isn't a confirmed Megalodon sighting, it is just something that shows us that life under the sea is mysterious and new secrets are revealed to us every day. In our number 6 spot today, we have Watson and the shark. For this one, we are headed all the way back to 1749 with a cabin boy named Brooke Watson. Brooke was swimming in the Havana harbor when he had his encounter with a shark. This one grabbed him by his right foot and dragged him under. The shark got a second chomp on his foot before a rescue boat was able to come and save him. The sailor on the boat managed to get the shark to back off enough that they could get Brooke out of the water. Brooke lost his lower leg, but his life was saved, which is absolutely the most important part. Brooke's story is not over, however, as he went on to become a member of parliament and eventually Lord Mayor of England. He was so proud of himself for not only having survived a shark attack, but then going on to earn this title that he commissioned famous artist John Singleton Copley to create a painting called Watson and the Shark, which detailed his horrifying encounter and probably went on to scare a ton of people at the time. In our number 5 spot today, we have Instagram famous. John Braxton is a man who Instagram is definitely not very happy at, and if his video came up in your feed unsuspectingly, you might also have some words for the guy. John was 27 years old at the time of his shark encounter, and he was spearfishing at the time. During his time fishing, he had an encounter with a huge shark that ended up taking a massive bite right out of his leg. John was thankfully able to escape the shark and swim to shore, where his partner tied a tourniquet and called 911. When the ambulance arrived, John was likely in shock. I mean, I would be if I even saw a shark beside me, let alone if one bit me. So in this altered state, John took his phone out and started recording a video where he panned down to his terribly injured leg. He of course posted the video to Instagram, who later removed it, but of course not before the entire computer and phone having population got a chance to save it and reshare it at any chance possible. In our number 4 spot today, we have Breach. This is a shark encounter that truthfully I have very little background info on, but the video really speaks for itself. This shark video was recorded in Mossel Bay, and it shows this gigantic shark basically leaping out of the ocean. I mean, come on, imagine. That would be absolutely terrifying. People who are more well versed in shark behavior than I am have explained that this shark, despite how it looks, is actually not doing this to be threatening, and it's not a move that would be done should it be attempting to attack something. I mean, that's not entirely true. It's actually more so used in order to try and catch fast moving prey like seals. It's relatively rare to capture a shark doing this though, because it takes so much energy for it to propel itself like this. I mean, they can reach 40 miles per hour and fly 10 feet into the air out of the water. That takes some serious strength. In our number 3 spot today, we have Ahmad Hassim. Back in 2006, Ahmad and his brother were assisting lifeguards in Cape Town, South Africa, and to do this, they were helping out running different survival drills. During this one particular drill, the brother was lying in the water, pretending to be someone who needed help, and that is when a huge shark could be seen heading towards this brother that was completely unaware. Ahmad saw this and was so quick thinking he knew that sharks are typically attracted to sound, which I actually didn't know, so there's a little shark trivia fact for ya. So because he knew this, he started splashing around in the water. This worked, and it led to the shark leaving his brother alone, but instead, the shark now set his sights on Ahmad. It ended up grabbing him by his right leg and pulling him underwater. He was able to use his left leg to kick at the shark until it let go of him, but the shark was still able to get away with his leg below the knee. A boat was able to rush him to shore, and help arrived quickly enough to rush him to the hospital and save his life. Ahmad has not not let this slow him down in the slightest though. He has gone on to reach not only the 2008 Beijing Paralympic Games, but he won gold at the 2012 London Paralympic Games, which is absolutely incredible. He has also gone on to become a shark advocate, saying that he has, quote, a sense that sharks are in trouble, and who better to speak up for sharks than a shark attack survivor. In our number 2 spot today, we have Rodney Fox. Rodney Fox is a man who was thought of as one of the best spear fishermen in the world. In 1963, he was partaking in the Australian Spearfishing Championships, which were being held just south of Adelaide, when he went through what is widely regarded as one of the worst shark attacks in history. The shark he encountered bit him around the waist, which ended up puncturing his diaphragm, ripping his lungs, and crushing his rib cage. Not only this, but the attack left his organs exposed, so much so that when he finally made it back to shore, those rescuing him had to keep his wetsuit on to ensure that his insides actually stayed on the inside. Despite the fact that Rodney needed at least 4 hours of surgery and about 400 stitches, like many people who have these sorts of terrifying encounters, rather than shying away from sharks and the water, he leaned in. He actually became an advocate for sharks after this. He created the first underwater shark observatory and helped to dispel the rumors that sharks are bad, crazy, scary animals that we should all fear. In our number 1 spot today, we have Michael Coots. Back in 1997, Michael was surfing near the coast of Hawaii when he had his shark encounter. The shark decided to attack and grabbed Michael by both of his legs. Michael has gone on to explain that once the shark had a hold on him, it began swinging him back and forth like a dog would do with a toy. That is absolutely so vivid and so horrifying to even think about. Michael was able to punch the shark into letting go of him and was able to escape to safety after the scary ordeal. Although he was lucky and happy to be alive, the shark had done enough damage that Michael ended up losing his right leg. Despite this setback, Michael was back in the water just 3 weeks later, already using his prosthetic leg and getting used to surfing with it so he could get right back to what he loves. Michael could be terrified of sharks now and no one would blame him, but it's the exact opposite. He swam around them and even taken selfies with them since, and has explained how much he respects them, saying, quote, sharks are not to be feared but are incredibly beautiful and extremely important species for the health of our oceans. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Mexican cenote. A couple of years ago, in the city of Madera, which is located in Mexico, researchers found the teeth of several species of shark, some of which of course belonged to our fave, the Megalodon. It is believed that this city was once underwater many years ago, and this discovery of course only bolstered that theory. There were teeth found from 3 different species of shark, and there were also vertebrae that may have belonged to an extinct animal species, and even fossilized human bones were found, which makes it clear that there is quite a rich history in this area. This discovery actually came after a photographer was looking at the wall of a cave and noticed something strange. This strange looking thing ended up being a tooth that once belonged to a saw shark. Hopefully with further analysis of the area, we can find more about what once called that place home and where that fits in the history and timeline of our planet. In our number 9 spot today, we have the South Carolina discovery. Back in 2020, a woman was walking the beach in South Carolina when she spotted a gray chunk sticking out of the sand. She suddenly realized that this was a tooth, and it was a lot larger than any she had seen before. She ended up taking a video as she found the tooth, which she ended up posting to Facebook, and according to her, the tooth was about 5.75 inches and weighed about 15.9 ounces. The area where she found the tooth was a coastal one in South Carolina, which was once the sea floor millions of years ago. The mud in the area is said to be quite the hotspot for finding ancient Megalodon teeth and other incredible treasures. After the find, the woman was rightfully shocked, saying, quote, the tooth is just incredible and it's mind-boggling that we now have a fossil on our mantle that is 3 to 5 million years old. Just wild. I mean, can we blame her? Not even the age, but how it's the fossil of the largest marine predator of all time. Pretty dang cool to say the least. In our number 8 spot today, we have the seashell hunt. Back in July of 2019, a man was out walking with his family and their dog on the shores of Ocean Isle Beach when he saw something sticking out of the sand. You likely already know where I'm going with this. It is no surprise this was an almost 6-inch tooth that once belonged to a Megalodon. The tooth itself of course is impressive, but so was the striking black root seen on the end. The family was apparently in the midst of searching for seashells, which is what led them to the tooth in the first place. size. In the low tide, they could only see the black root, but thankfully they took the time to flip it over, which is when they realized what it was. While North Carolina is often a hotspot for these kinds of finds, this tooth was found more inland than usual, which was quite a surprise. While many people either sell or mount their prehistoric finds, this family apparently decided to donate it to the Museum of Coastal Carolina. In our number 7 spot today, we have the UK find. Just a couple of months ago, it was reported that a 6-year-old boy from the southeast of the UK had made the amazing find of a tooth from a megalodon. The beach that the child found the tooth on is said to be quite a popular spot for fossil hunters, but this tooth is a very rare and fascinating find. You might be thinking, aren't there lots of megalodon teeth on this list? And the answer is yes, but finding one is still a spectacular discovery, and finding one in the UK is one of the most rare of all. Only 1 or 2 megalodon teeth are found on UK shores a year, and most of the time they tend to be of quite poor quality. After reviewing the discovery, it was realized to be even more incredible because of how well preserved the tooth was, and the fact that the root and the enamel are still visible. Many experts have explained that they've been looking for this kind of find since they were 6 years old and have never found one. One scientist said of the find, quote, "He is handling the tooth of the largest ever predatory shark, and one that will be of interest to the whole paleontology community." In our number 6 spot today, we have the family vacation. That 6-year-old from the UK isn't the only youngster who stumbled upon an ancient shark tooth recently, as it is said that a 5-year-old from South Carolina also made a similar discovery back in July of 2021. The boy named Xander found the tooth during a family vacation to North Myrtle Beach and was rightfully pretty ecstatic. Xander's mother Kelly explained that the quote, "whole family loves hunting for shark teeth," that quote, "Xander and my husband were searching in the swash during low tide when Xander spotted this one in the mud." Kelly posted photos of her son with the tooth to a couple of Facebook pages in an attempt to identify what exactly they had found, and that is when hundreds of people began chiming in claiming that they believed the tooth is one that had once belonged to a megalodon. They explained that while they have found other teeth, this is by far the largest one they've ever found, and while Xander wanted to put the tooth on a necklace, they will likely end up having it framed or maybe even mounted. In our number 5 spot today, we have the tooth analysis. So of course, as we've previously discussed, especially on part 1 of this list, most of what is left of the megalodon's existence is teeth. This leaves us with quite little to go on, but that doesn't mean we can't figure anything out about how the guys lived. Teeth are certainly better than nothing, and they might just give us more insights than one would expect. Researchers have been using a new technique to analyze megalodon teeth that aims at figuring out their dietary signatures, as seen in the teeth. Researchers aren't just using megalodon teeth and are actually examining teeth from 13 extinct sharks as well as 20 modern sharks to see where they fit in the food chain as well as what their trophic level is or was. For a long time, scientists have been trying to figure out what exactly caused the megalodon to go extinct, considering they were an apex predator. Something had to go awry to cause their downfall, and this study is helping to prove what some believe, which is that their disappearance was caused by food competition. Researchers are looking at the presence of different isotopes of zinc that are preserved in the tooth enamel. This can help them to determine what kind of animal matter that different species of sharks ate, which in turn allows them to figure out which sharks that lived at the same time ate similar types of food and which didn't. So far, the research has led experts to believe that the megalodon might have had some pretty stiff competition for food with another shark species at the same time, and this might be what led to their downfall. In our number 4 spot today, we have Bone Valley. The Bone Valley region of Florida is known for their megalodon teeth, some of which have some pretty striking colors. While this was once a hotspot for finding the remains of the prehistoric shark, the teeth are now getting hard to come by as access to nearly all of the mines and phosphate pits where the teeth were found has been closed off. Many of the teeth found here were on the smaller side and are said to have once belonged to juveniles of this species. This is exactly why it is thought that this area was once a nursery for the megalodons, which is super cool. Typically when found, megalodon teeth have a gray coloring to them, but some in this region have been more white colored or yellow. In our number 3 spot today, we have nurseries. Speaking of megalodon nurseries, there has been research into identifying these types of places specifically, and it is looking like there are 5 potential ones that have been found, and they include ones ponds in the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Pacific basins where fossils have been located that range in age from 16 million to 3 million years. According to the study, quote, "Our analysis supports the presence of 5 potential nurseries ranging from the Middle Miocene to the Pliocene with higher densities of individuals with estimated body length within the typical range of neonates and young juveniles." It goes on to say, quote, "These results reveal for the first time that nursery areas were commonly used by O. Megalodon over large temporal and spatial scales, reducing early mortality and playing a key role in maintaining viable adult populations." This just shows us that these areas were extremely important for the species in order to feed and protect the younger members, just like how modern sharks do the same sort of thing. In our number 2 spot today, we have the downfall. Like any scientist who studies the Megalodon, there is also the pressing question of how did these guys end up extinct? What really drove them there? It is something that we have some really good theories and hypotheses about, but no one can yet say for certain. Those same scientists who are studying the Megalodon nurseries, however, are also explaining why these nurseries could potentially have been one of the things that led to their downfall. In the same study, speaking about these 5 potential nurseries, they also explained that, quote, "Ultimately, the presumed reliance of O. Megalodon on the presence of suitable nursery grounds might have also been determinant in the demise of this iconic top predatory shark. Our planet has changed a lot, and it is possible that these areas that they really relied on to help nurse their young into adulthood began disappearing thanks to the changing climate of the Earth. At this point, it is just another contender for real cause of the extinction of the Megalodon, but it is certainly a compelling argument. Although the Megalodon didn't survive up until these modern times, sharks as a class of animals have been able to survive all 5 global extinction events, which is absolutely incredible. In our number 1 spot today, we have the supernova theory. Okay, to cap off our list today, we have one more theory as to how the Megalodon may have gone extinct. The theory was published by 3 researchers in the Scientific Journal of Astrobiology, and basically it suggests that it could be possible that, quote, "one or more supernova about 2.6 million years ago may have been the leading cause of a mass extinction of a large number of marine megafauna, which of course would include our buddy the Megalodon." This theory claims that an increase in radiation from these cosmic events may have been strong enough to have a drastic effect on marine life. In a statement, one of the scientists associated with the study said, quote, "Imagine the great white shark in Jaws, which was enormous, and that's the Megalodon, but it was about the size of a school bus. They just disappeared about that time. So we can speculate it might have something to do with the muons. Basically, the bigger the creature is, the bigger the increase in radiation would have been." They went on to say that the radiation from exploding stars, which could have been as close as just 160 light years away from Earth, may have been too much for our atmosphere and the creatures that lived here at the time to handle. While water shields a good amount of radiation, the scientists claim that it can't block the muons. The researcher also said, quote, "Creatures that are used to being almost isolated from radiation would suddenly get a whole lot. They would be unlikely to have as good of a defense against radiation as land creatures would." And that's the end. The colossal squid is a creature that is not to be confused with the giant squid, which is similar but slightly smaller. These guys live in the darkest, coldest depths surrounding the waters of Antarctica. This creature lives up to its name as it reaches an average of 46 feet in size, and it weighs around 500 kilograms, with the females being the largest of the species. They also have large tentacles equipped with suckers that have little razor hooks on them to better latch onto its prey, so let's hope it's not you. Its diet mainly consists of large fish, such as the 7-foot Patagonian toothfish, and small ones, and some even consume their own kind. But they've also been known to try and consume even larger prey, like sperm whales, who often have been seen with scars attributing to the battles they must have faced. They're colossal, they're scary, and they're ambitious. What more could you want from a sea monster? Only 2 specimens have ever been collected, with the second being found recently in 2014, so on top of how frightening they are, they're also extremely elusive. In our number 9 spot today, we have the scalloped hammerhead shark. These sharks of course belong to the hammerhead family, and the main feature is their oddly shaped heads. These guys are a coastal pelagic species, and their eyes and nostrils can be found at the ends of the tips of their head extensions. These sharks like to use the shore as a breeding ground, and their young have an incredibly high metabolic rate, which means that they need a ton of food or else they will starve. These guys are quite notable for their large and complex brains. They have quite high levels of cognitive capabilities, and they're often really socially intelligent. They have complex migratory patterns and habitat relationships, and they are very athletic and clever when it comes to capturing prey. Nothing better than a super smart, extremely really hungry shark. Their brains are great for the species in a multitude of ways, of course, but especially in terms of reproduction. Because of their social intelligence, it helps them to seek out the fittest members of the species to procreate with. Unfortunately, as of this year, however, the scalloped hammerhead shark is now listed as critically endangered, with the main cause for the population decline being overfishing. They are overharvested because of their large size, as well as the fact that apparently their fins have a high fin needle content, and so they are sold for $100 to $120 US per kilogram. In our number 8 spot today, we have tiger sharks. Tiger sharks are a species of shark that are the only surviving member of their genus. These macro predators can grow to be quite large, reaching lengths of over 5 meters or 16 feet and 5 inches. They're usually found in tropical and temperate waters, and their tiger name comes from the dark stripes that can distinctly be seen running down its body, although these marks do fade as the sharks mature. Tiger sharks live mostly solitary lives, and they are nocturnal hunters. They are well known for having quite the variety of prey, which includes crustaceans, fish, seals, birds, squid, turtles, sea snakes, dolphins, and even other smaller sharks. Unfortunately, these sharks are nearing a point of being a threatened species due to finning and fishing by humans, but it is thought that the Bermuda Triangle might be home to a secret sort of breeding ground for these guys. Hopefully, if this is the case, we can find a way to help protect the area so that the species can once again thrive. After the great white shark, tiger sharks are the second in line when it comes to the most recorded fatal attacks on humans, but although that sounds terrifying, these events are extremely rare. I learned that from the documentary that I watched. In our number 7 spot today, we have the deep sea lizardfish. Deep sea lizardfish are a small family of deep water fish who are related to the telescope fish. These guys have flat heads and curved, barbed teeth, and they grow up to 78 centimeters or 31 inches in length, which makes them a pretty moderately sized fish. They prefer to stay at depths of 1,600 meters or 5,200 feet, and they're actually one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These lizardfish are known to eat anything that comes their way, including other fish of their own kind. Despite the lack of light in the depths of the ocean, these guys have really large eyes and pupils, and their vision is actually really important for their prey detection, as their well-developed eyes allow them to see any residual or bioluminescent light. Not a lot is known about their reproduction habits, but one thing that is known is that deep sea lizardfish have both male and female reproductive organs, which is thought to be an adaptation to low population density. In our number 6 spot today, we have the flying spaghetti monster. I know, it sounds a little silly, but I swear this creature really does exist. This deep sea creature is a species of siphonophore that can usually be found in the Atlantic Ocean. While these guys appear to be one organism, they're actually a colonial organism, which means that they're composed of many medusoid and polypoid zooids. Zooids are multicellular units that develop from one single fertilized egg, and they combine to create functional colonies like the flying spaghetti monster. In our number 5 spot today, we have the faceless cusk eel. Anything that's called faceless certainly can't be good, and this eel is absolutely no exception. These guys don't have a face, and they honestly look like the dementors of the deep sea. The first time one of these was found was in 1973 when oceanographers aboard the HMS Challenger discovered it, but for a century, no one else came across one of these guys. Perhaps it's because they like to make their home in the icy waters located 13,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. Just a few years ago, when these guys were sort of rediscovered, one of the leaders of the expedition, Tim O'Hara, told The Guardian that, quote, "It looks like 2 rear ends on a fish." Really. Apparently, the mouth of these guys sits underneath its body and can extend out to catch food before disappearing back inside its own body. It's kinda cool, kinda gross. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Fangtooth fish. The Fangtooth fish has a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth, perfect for clutching just about any size of prey in its jaw. That's right, any size. They live in the deepest parts of the ocean, the deepest having been recorded around 16,000 feet. That is until they just so happen to feel like migrating up to the surface for a little vacation. Unlike a lot of other deep sea dwellers, Fangtooths do not have any bioluminescent organs to attract their prey. That is because they're not the sit and wait kind of predator, and instead they seek out their lunch using their excellent sense of smell. They are more active than most deep sea dwellers and heavily rely on any light that may sink into their dark home. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Pacific viperfish. The Pacific viperfish can be found at different areas in the ocean, depending on the time of day. They usually like to stay in the baffle zone, which is about 100 meters to 400 meters below the surface of the ocean, but during the nighttime, they will sometimes rise up into much much shallower water because there is more food for them to eat. It's easy to pick out which fish is a viperfish because of the fact that its jaw is sticking out forward and then they have those extra long pointy teeth. The Pacific viperfish is predatory and mostly eats other fish, but it will also chow down on crustaceans, plankton, and shrimp. This fish can grow to be about 1 foot long and they are considered one of the most aggressive fish for their size. I know it's only 1 foot long, but hearing how vicious it is, coupled with how ugly it is, and I really don't want to be anywhere near this thing. One cool thing about these fish though is that they have what is called ultra black skin, and it reduces the reflection of anything that is illuminated around them so that they can camouflage themselves easier in the darkness of the deep sea. In our number 2 spot today we have the sea spider. Okay, if you're like me and don't like the spiders that exist on land, unfortunately this one is not going to be up your alley. Sea spiders are giant, and they like to suck the life out of their prey. Yeah, how terrifying and honestly gross. They basically just latch onto their prey for dear life and suck out all of the fluid that they possibly can. They are gross, but they technically aren't actually spiders. These guys have a leg span that is comparable to some of the largest land spiders, but the thing with these guys is that they carry their organs in their legs, because I mean they're basically all legs. The good news is that they prefer the really cold temperatures like the ones in the waters surrounding Antarctica, so unless you're planning on taking an icy cold plunge anytime soon, you're unlikely to encounter one of these creepy crawly sea creatures. In our number 1 spot today we have the megamouth shark. These guys are a species of deep water shark that is rarely ever seen by humans, so there is so much about them that remains a total mystery. Since its discovery, which first came in 1976, there have been fewer than 100 specimens ever observed or caught. These guys are planktivorous, which means that they like to feed on planktonic foods. This leads to them swimming with their mouths wide open, and this, coupled with their extremely large heads and lips, makes them easily recognizable if you were to ever run into one on a casual trip to the deep sea. Alright guys, that's been our
Hold on to your tinfoil hats, folks, because an FBI insider has just dropped some leaked photos that'll shake your reality to its core. Now we're talking evidence of alien specimens and underground facilities that make Area 51 look tiny by comparison. Y'all better click before they confiscate these paradigm-shattering pictures.